This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. Consider this your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you listen and download podcasts, would you subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a rating and a brief review? That is so helpful in assisting others to find this podcast who do not yet know about it. Today I want to talk about making a list and checking it twice. And no, I'm not impersonating Santa Claus, and it's nowhere near Christmas, but the power of making a list, which starts with a particular question, my friend. Do you have a plan? When I first began my adult life, for me it was ministry, I had no one who had mentored or taught me about making lists or setting goals or any of those things. I just sort of wandered through my life, and if I'd stop by and someone would offer me a piece of pie or coffee, I would while away the hours laughing, reminiscing, telling, and listening to stories. And whereas it was a bunch of fun, I wasn't very productive. And that's when I began to go to seminars and began to read. And someone said, you have to have a plan. And to implement your plans on a daily basis, you have to have a list. Now, lists, whether they're task lists, to-do lists, have been a part of society as long as people have gotten together. It's Umberto Eco who says that a list is the beginning of a culture. Meaning that when people start writing down dreams, goals, aspirations, items they need to get done today, they are giving their life and their family and their work, and yes, even the world at large, i.e. the culture, some parameters in which to work. He has some very fascinating things to say about the psychology of list making. And then Benjamin Franklin. He was the granddaddy, the grand poobah, if you will, of making a list. If you look at the virtues that he tried to live by every day and the fastidious way that he kept records, and it's almost overwhelming. You wonder how he had any time to do the things on his list because of his meticulous record keeping. But if you're the opposite of that, you might want to read some of the things that Benjamin Franklin did. I am in no way intimating we should copy Benjamin Franklin. He seems maybe a little over the top, but there are certainly principles there. I read an article the other day by the science fiction writer Ray Bradbury, who talked about when he began to write, one of the things he would do, because he would get stuck, and maybe it was writer's block, whatever it was, and he would just begin to randomly sit down and write all of the nouns that popped into his head onto a list. And he said then as he would look back at the list, it became many times the impetus for his next science fiction book that he was going to write. Well, I could go on the rest of the day listing people who have talked about the importance and value of writing things down and having a to-do list. So the question is, do you have a plan? When I went through the early part of my leadership, just sort of floating along, I had come to finally to this understanding. If I don't have a plan, then I am a victim of the whims of the plans of others. If you don't have a plan for your life, I guarantee you somebody somewhere has a plan, and you will be a part of their plan. I also grew up in a culture in which having too many plans, planning too far ahead, kind of left God out of it or any opportunity that may come along. And so there was sort of a put down of people who were organized and who had plans. But I came to an understanding in my life that the only people who are really in a position to change their plans are people who have a plan. In essence, only the prepared are in a position to change. You can't change nothing. Now, I know that's poor English, but if you don't know what you're doing, how do you know if it's an opportunity or just another thing that's coming along to waste your time? But if you're prepared and you have plans and you have dreams and you've broken them down, into bite-sized pieces and easier steps to do, and a new opportunity comes along, well, you are in a much stronger position to evaluate whether this new thing that has presented itself is really an opportunity, or is it an obstacle, or is it something merely going to get you sidetracked from what it is you are supposed to be doing. And so let's kind of go at a couple of tacks with this about plans, to-do lists, and goals. First of all, our plans can and should be adjusted. We're about halfway, a little more than halfway, we're just about halfway through the year. And I've already, from the plans that I began to implement in November and December, these are what I'm going to do in the next year, I've already dropped a couple of them, readjusted a couple of others, and even gone in one area in another direction. Now, there are a couple of categories that I'm right on track and things are really progressing. So whereas it's great to have a plan, remember your written plan is not the Bible, the Magna Carta, or the United States Constitution. It can be adjusted. They can be modified. They can be amended. And you can even delete some of the things and go in another direction. You'll only, again, as I have already said, you'll only know if something is a real opportunity and a real option if you have written down and thought through and dreamed and planned. So remember, have a plan. You can't adjust if you don't have anything that needs to be adjusted. Now, I'm talking right now at the moment a little bit about more than just a list of activity, a list of routine, mundane tasks, although I do have a routine list that I keep. I keep mine in the Nosby software app, a productivity software app. They're just certain things: cleaning out my email, answering my emails, filing things in Evernote, preparing to write blog subjects, preparing for visits to congregations, preparing for meetings with individuals. Their routine, and they're going to happen week in, week out, month in and month out. They cannot be ignored, but I can't just list them on my to-do list or my task list for today because of the importance, but you can't let the routine slide. So I have a separate list for the routine, and I check it to make sure that I'm keeping on track, up to date with checking off the routine things, because whatever your responsibilities are, there are some things that are always going to need to be done. They are routine, and you can't let them slide, and you can't forget about them, but they cannot be the entire focus of your entire day, or you'll never move your organization one step farther. So my daily list, I call it a list with a purpose, and then I do block time in, half-hour increment, 20-minute increments to do the routine things. But my list that I look at every day has a purpose. And it's not just activities. Go there, do that, meet with, those sorts of things. It has a purpose. Things that I believe I've been called to do to help move myself and my organization further. And I make sure that a good percentage of the things on that list are goal-oriented, are dream-oriented, because if we don't tend to our dreams and tend to our goals, they will just never happen. We'll come to the end of the year and we'll be discouraged. Where did the time go? Why didn't I manage this? Why didn't I get these things done? Now, on my list with a purpose, I will certainly have on there meetings that I'm going to have. Am I prepared for those things? But I have listed 3 important tasks that I will not go to bed that evening until those 3 things are done. And you've heard me say a few times, I try to get 1 or 2 of them done before I even get into the office. So don't just list activities. I think the key thing that really jet propelled my ability to get things done is when I married my to-do list, my task list, my activity list with my calendar. Many of us keep our calendar as a separate issue and our activities, task lists, as a separate activities. And that is problematic. If something is important enough to get on my list for the day, then I have to block out time in my calendar. Time doesn't just appear to do those things. And unfortunately, because if you're a leader, you are about taking care of a lot of urgent things through a day, that the important things that really need our tending can fall through the cracks. So make sure that if it's on your list for today, it gets on your calendar. And as I've said, I make sure that there are a couple of things on there that are goal or dream oriented. Things that I want to do, things I want to get better at, things that I believe will move the needle forward. What is the step? What is the action I can take today? And I get them done. Again, do not just list things on the list as activities to be done. Make sure there are tasks, things that you know when you have started it and when you have finished it. This is where my to-do list broke down early on when I started doing this, is that I would just list goals or activities, but had no idea what task, what step did I need to take today in order to implement that. So I make sure that I don't just put activities on there, but go to the store, go pick up that, research this for 20 minutes, write this down for 20 minutes, make sure to schedule the speaker, something that I can actually do and accomplish in a somewhat short or reasonable amount of time. And that's why I've kind of gone at times back and forth and not called it a to-do list, even though that's my default way. It really is a task list. These are the activities I must get done. These are the actions I must take today. I've already told you I have another routine list. When you look at that list, I do begin to write them down in a journal book, kind of randomly as they come to thought. And then I prioritize them. I prioritize them hard. Someone has given me this term, I prioritize ruthlessly. There are some things that are nice to do, and even though you hear me talking about the three, I have more than 3 activities and 3 actions I need to take every day. I have a whole lot more than that. But these 3 are the ones that are going to move me forward. Now, I get a lot of the others done, but don't just find out the ones that can be done when you're a little tired and out of gas. There are certain routine things you do. That for me is my routine list, when I don't have to do a whole lot of thinking, but I still need to take some action. Prioritize ruthlessly. Be working on that which is important. And last but not least, be realistic. When I started out doing all of this, I was going to conquer the world in a day, and I would list 29 things to do, and there's no way you could do that. So I was never to the point where I could get completed or felt like I had had a successful day, until I learned to prioritize and say, if nothing else gets done tomorrow, these 3 things must get done. And it was almost magical that once I started getting the 3 important things done early in the day, I was able to get a whole lot more of the other things done as well. So again, make a list, make sure you refer to it. Some people just write it down and then never refer back to it. I take it with me. I'm one of those that still scratches it off. I love electronics, but this is something I still do via paper. Make a list, check it, have a plan, know where you're headed, and move full speed ahead, but knowing that you can make the change, make course corrections along the way. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I hope that you've considered this your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart today. Again, if you would subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a rating and a brief review, and be sure and tell your friends and get them to subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. This is Dr. Ron saying until next time, have a great and blessed week, and try making a list and prioritizing 3 things that must be done every day. I guarantee you it will move the needle in your life. Have a great and blessed day.